Rob, are these new promotional flyers?
Pretty spiffy, right? 2 months of work really paid off.
Well, they look extremely similar to the last ones. The paper is a different color, at least.
And the font is totally different. Like you've always said, if it ain't broke, give it a new coat of paint.
This looks more like a coat of photocopy.
I like to think of it as a shot-for-shot remake.
Welcome to Rewind Video. I'm Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we love movies. Good ones, bad ones, old ones, new ones, smart movies, stupid movies.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Let's try that again.
Okay.
Thank you for visiting Rewind Video. My name is Bob.
I'm Rob.
And we adore movies. Films of all lengths, films of all genres, films you watch once, films you go back to multiple times. See what I did there, Rob?
I did.
Yeah. Took our intro, spruced it up. The original is a classic, but this reinterpretation has a little bit of merit too. Obviously, we're going to have some people that prefer the original, and then there are going to be some folks who like the remake, you know?
Yeah, there's always going to be people with opinions.
I think we exclusively give membership cards to people with opinions.
Yes.
And employ them.
I have plenty of opinions myself.
So tonight, we're going to dive deeper into this topic. You and I, as everyone knows, have an important job here at the store. We keep the staff recommendation shelf up to date with films that our beloved customers ought to check out. Every time we add new movies to the shelf, we adhere to a theme, and this week's theme is remakes.
If at first you don't succeed, do it again.
Do it again.
One more time.
One more time.
Or even if you do succeed, do it again.
Do it again, yeah. So before we get into how we chose this theme, we do have a correction to offer. During our show business episode, we gave Paul Verhoeven a lot of credit for being the first director to have 3 movies chosen for the staff recommendation shelf. But once we sobered up, I think we realized that honor actually belongs to Richard Linklater and perhaps Ridley Scott if you're getting
Tony Scott.
And Tony Scott, yeah. You know,
we were wrong. We're not wrong often. We were just
right.
plain wrong.
Right. Yeah. We have a few directors that...
There's a lot of different ways we could have been wrong.
Yes.
The rare correction we have to make.
Yeah, this is the first.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
First mistake we've admitted to.
Yeah. Well, cheers to all of the directors who have appeared multiple times on our staff recommendation shelf.
And will.
And cheers to us.
Yes.
Because this is our 50th episode.
Cheers to that,
Yeah,
Bob.
cheers to that. Yeah, as you just mentioned, we've been manning the staff recommendation shelf for years, decades even.
Yes.
And we've only started talking about it to the public at large recently, but sure enough, if we survive tonight's episode, we'll have 50 in the books. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite theme from our first 50 episodes?
Well, I don't know if I have a favorite. They're all special to me in their own way.
Like children.
Some of the themes that have hit the hardest. One. Definitely not my favorite, but over 170 minutes is one I'll never forget. That was one of the hardest weeks of my life.
Yes. Yeah.
Watching several 3+ hour movies. One subject I'd love to get back to, but I think it might be impossible because there just aren't enough movies out there. But parades has always been one topic that I think that we should definitely go back to if we can. But man, it's a tough one.
Boy, that was a fun episode. And I feel like I didn't do my part with that episode because I only brought 2 movies to the table. So if nothing else, I should have a third.
Yeah, you should. You know, that was one of our very early episodes as well. You know, we were just getting our feet underneath us.
Mm-hmm. Working out the kinks.
And we were going at a really tough topic too. So, I can't blame you for that.
Well, those ones were indeed good. I still look back fondly on the Scott family reunion episode, but the truth is we just never miss.
That's so true.
Unless we're counting the times that directors have appeared on the shelf. So how did we arrive at this week's theme? If I remember correctly, this one's mine. Mm-hmm. I think remakes are a pretty fascinating topic. We decided to be pretty loose with the parameters here. our remakes can be adapted from books that the original movies were based on. They can be categorized as reboots. I don't know that we have anything that fits into that category tonight, but we're not too strict, I think, with remakes.
Yeah, we're generally not too strict at all on anything around here.
Right. And we are here to recognize that remakes, in spite of their reputation, can be great. We also have 5 different decades represented with tonight's picks. There's the 2020s, the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, even the 70s.
Fantastic.
Quite a variety. And, I would say in spite of the range, there are some common themes across a few of our films. I don't want to spoil anything for our listeners. We'll let them see if they can pick the through lines. But, yeah.
There's going to be a test later.
Take notes. Well, without further ado, let's just jump right in. I'm curious to talk about your first pick. It's a good one.
Okay. I think this, to me, this is the low-hanging fruit here. So I'm going to start us out with Ocean's 11 from 2001. Directed by Steven Soderbergh. This is filed under Splash and Grab. Here's the back of the box. Less than 24 hours into his parole, charismatic thief Danny Ocean is already rolling out his next plan. In one night, Danny's hand-picked crew of specialists will attempt to steal more than $150 million from 3 Las Vegas casinos. But to score the cash, Danny risks his chances of reconciling with his ex-wife, Tess. Remember that back of the box. I'm going to come back to that later in the episode. Tagline, are you in or out?
It's fine.
Yeah. If it's the gambling reference, I think, too.
Yeah.
This is based on a 1960 Rat Pack vehicle. And it starred Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Angie Dickinson, and, of course, Frank Sinatra. This is kind of the perfect candidate for a remake for a couple reasons. First, it's a great idea.
Yes.
In the original, they rob 5 different Las Vegas casinos, and they kind of do the same thing. They infiltrate the garbage company, and they rewire the cages, shut down the power, the whole deal. Another reason this was such a good candidate for a remake, though, is because the first one is generally considered not that great. They took this great idea and didn't do a whole lot with it.
Yeah.
Most reviews say things like lazy or lackadaisical or slapdash, nonchalant. You know.
It also doesn't have such a positive ending to it. Not that a movie needs to have a happy ending, but that one's a little bit more sour than this one.
Yeah, they get caught. I haven't seen the original. Oh. I believe they get caught.
Well, one of them also doesn't survive.
One of them dies. Yeah, has a heart attack or something. Right. It's a lot of just the Rat Pack hanging out, being the Rat Pack, and they were just like, well, that's enough, And also,
let's go sing some songs.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra was Frank Sinatra at that point, and he was also like, hey, I'm not doing 2 takes on this movie. I gotta meet a dame later.
Right.
But there's these great bones, and Soderbergh took these bones and built an absolute classic, in my opinion. There's not a lot not to like here.
No, this is great.
Soderbergh realized this did work great as a vehicle for just movie stars being movie stars.
Yes.
Preferably movie stars that wanted to be there instead of the Rat Pack. But of course, you've got the Clooney and Brad Pitt and Julia Roberts, Bernie Mac, et cetera, et cetera. So the cast is incredible. They're having a blast. It seems like the whole point of this movie was to just have fun making a movie.
Yeah.
And that really comes across on screen. And this really just sets the standard for heist movies from this point on. Yeah.
I would also say that it handles an ensemble cast better than most movies with a similarly stacked group of actors ever do. This is just there's a lot of chemistry.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of character actors here, but also there's a lot of stars. And they all just were just like, I'll just be one of 11 people in the movie. And they were all okay with that just because it seemed like fun and Clooney's there and
Yeah, even among the A-list stars, nobody's really jockeying for I want to be the guy in front of everyone else on the box. There's not necessarily a Frank Sinatra among this group, even though they're all great at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, Clooney is that guy. It seems like, I don't know, it seems like he wants to be that guy in real life.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know if he really served that purpose in the production of this movie, but it kind of seemed like that he was going for that.
Right.
But yeah, they do all the tropes, and they solidified the tropes here in this movie. Where they assemble the team, they concoct this elaborate plan, they adapt the plan on the fly. They parts of the plan that you thought weren't parts of the plan turn out to be part of the plan the whole time.
Sure.
The way they use misdirection, those are just like table stakes now. If you're making a heist movie, like you just have to be able to do all these things to do a heist movie. I think this is just a fantastic Vegas movie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We talked about Swingers before and how the arc from Swingers, which was, I think, 96?
Yes.
To this movie in 2001 was the rebirth of what Vegas is nowadays. Mm-hmm. And this movie just really solidified the modern Vegas idea, at least. It
really does. And not only in the place that they occupy, but the character of the characters. They're big, they're glamorous, and it exudes the Vegas attitude,
The producer was friends with the guy that owned MGM at the time. And so they were able to shoot at the Bellagio. And I am a fan of the Bellagio. I've spent some time there, and it's amazing how it it hasn't changed. Like, it looks exactly the same as it does in 2001.
Yeah, it's an institution.
And the fountains out front are they've just become like the symbol of Las Vegas. And I think it's because they're pretty cool, and like it's kind of in the center of the Strip and whatnot. But I also think this movie has a lot to do with it. It just kind of like became the symbol of what Las Vegas is for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think there were quite a few films beginning with Swingers. I would include this and the two sequels that followed, and also The Hangover, that gave Vegas this mystique as a place that has something for everyone. You can get into some crazy shit, and it's going to be a good time. You know?
Yeah. There's also they did a lot of they really reinvented themselves in a lot of way in that time, because like in the 90s they were still like the Treasure Island Pirates of the Caribbean bullshit, Flamingo, as they say. But yeah, like this movie, I think to me is kind of like a pop song that has aged into greatness, because this movie, it is a popcorn, just very light on its feet, just fun and breezy entertainment. Yeah. But now, 20 some years later, it's like wow, this is like actually kind of great.
Yeah, I mean, it's aged incredibly well. I would say that the only part of it that doesn't hold up quite as well for me as it did the first time through was the reveal of how the heist worked at the very end. Yeah. But everything leading up to that, I mean, really, you're not in it for the heist itself. You're in it for everything that leads up to that. And, the interaction between the characters and how they're planning it out.
I think because the heist movie's gotten more complicated since this has come out, too. I think at first, the ending of this movie is like almost mind-blowing.
Yes.
It's like, whoa, how did they figure that out? Now, once you've seen it 15 times, and once every other movie has done like something even like more outlandish, this doesn't hit quite as hard at the end.
Right.
But you're right. Yeah, it's not about them driving off with the money. It's about the whole movie itself. It's about having fun with it. On this rewatch, I finally bumped this up to 5 stars because I was like, who am I kidding? I mean, it's one of those movies that like, I enjoy every second of it. I get to the end of it, I'm like, I want to watch it again.
Right.
Right. There's no shortage of other 5-star reviews on Letterboxd for this movie. I found one from user Kayla, who writes, "I love when you smile at the end of a movie because what just happened was so sick." And that kind of sums up how I feel about it.
Yeah.
It's just like a fun movie that makes you smile, and I'm putting it on the shelf this week for Remakes.
Well, I'm glad you did. We talked a lot about the cast and how great they are. This isn't a group of people that are generally known for comedy, and yet this is a funny movie. However, I gotta say, my favorite actors across all 3 of these movies are far and away Casey Affleck and Scott Conn.
Really?
They're fucking hilarious. They make me laugh every time. I mean, the late Bernie Mac is also great to see, but boy, I'm in it for Casey and Scott because they're just so good together.
I think they're in it just the right amount too. 5-10 seconds at a time here and there.
Yeah,
just enough.
I love them. And this franchise. It's such a great series of movies, and it has to start somewhere. And Ocean's 11 is a good one. I agree. 5 stars for me too.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I am going back to 2002 with my first pick. And it's from the Yo Dog. I heard you like remakes, so I gave you a remake with literal remakes in it section of the store. Solaris is my movie. And
it's a very small section.
It is a very small. Yes. Back of the box synopsis goes like this. Aboard a lonely space station orbiting a mysterious planet, terrified crew members are experiencing a host of strange phenomena, including eerie visitors who seem all too human. And when psychologist Chris Kelvin arrives to investigate, he confronts a power beyond imagining that could hold the key to mankind's deepest dreams or darkest nightmares. Tagline here is, how far will you go for a second chance? Incidentally, another tagline was considered for this, and it was Love Never Dies, but that one had already been taken by Bram Stoker's Dracula. I don't know that How Far Will You Go for a Second Chance is much of an improvement. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, I don't know that either one's that great.
No. So interesting that this is our second movie because it's another Soderbergh movie. Ocean's 11 is Soderbergh. This is Soderbergh. This also stars George Clooney. And it is a remake. This came out a year after Ocean's 11. But it's a movie that I love. It also happens to be about love. Every time I rewatch it, I find something new to love. And this time around was no different. So, yeah, this is a remake of a 1972 film by the same name, directed by Andrei Tarkovsky. The 2002 version tells a pretty similar story. It's almost the same story with less detail. It's more ambiguous about what is causing the strange phenomena that the crew aboard the space station are experiencing. And I think the story being told here is better when you know less. It lets you spend more time with the emotional baggage that kind of comes with the experiences that everyone is having. This is also a 98-minute movie, whereas the Tarkovsky film is 167 minutes. That's a lot of minutes.
A little much.
Yeah.
Still not enough for over 170.
No, it doesn't quite get there. I almost had picked the original Solaris for that theme, had it made the cut, but wasn't eligible. So we've talked about who's behind the camera. Let's also mention who's in front of it. I talked about George Clooney, and this is kind of right at the beginning of his meteoric rise into stardom. Ocean's 11 definitely kicks it off, but like from here he goes into some just like huge movies. We also get a downright muscular Natasha McElhone as his love interest. She is cut in this movie. I don't know if you saw in certain scenes, she's just ripped.
Did not notice.
And then Jeremy Davies is also here delivering a bizarre yet pretty captivating performance. You know, he kind of made a name for himself in Hollywood for an audition tape that he did for a movie that wasn't even getting made, where he was portraying Charles Manson. And,
okay.
And it was apparently an incredible take on Manson, and that audition that he created was kind of being passed around Hollywood because everyone was like, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Look how well he does this. And
auditioned for a movie that doesn't exist.
Right. And I think it helped get him this part. It eventually helped get him a role playing Charles Manson. I can't remember what the film was, but yeah, if you like him, you can see him doing his thing in other films. So, this isn't just a remake in the sense of Soderbergh remaking Tarkovsky. The subject of this movie, the strange phenomena that the eerie visitors at the back of the box refers to, are remakes of people that relate to repressed memories or obsessions of each of the astronauts. So, for context, George Clooney's character arrives on this space station to investigate what's been happening to the crew, and once he's there, he's greeted by a physical recreation of his deceased wife, and every member of the crew is visited by someone different from their past. So, remakes abound. Yeah. Why did I choose this? As I mentioned, twofold interpretation of remakes here. But to be honest, I picked this film because I've watched it over and over since its release. I really love the story that this movie tells, and it's not just about one person's experience aboard the space station that's orbiting the planet of Solaris. It's about how the visitors impact each character. It's even about how the visitors themselves are feeling about what's going on. You know, it's about love, death, how identity is tied to memory. It's also about loss and grief.
Yeah. What is going on?
I don't know. Well, so I can tell you what happens in the Tarkovsky movie.
Yeah.
The Tarkovsky movie explains that these visitors are a product of this, for lack of a better term, magical water that occupies the planet, and from that water, yes, these recreations of things that are personal to each of the astronauts are manifest. And we don't get that explanation here. We don't know anything about what's happening on the planet, but we do get a feel for the fact that these visitors are coming from the planet.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Where they are being caused by some sort of force associated with the planet.
Yes. Yes.
It's hard to say what I would do in that situation, but I feel like I would be like, I'm out of here, you know?
Yeah.
Especially after a day or two, like, okay, this isn't good.
Well, that is, I think, what is so fascinating about this story, because I think with 99% of the people in the world that this planet could create and put in front of me, I would react exactly the same way. I'd be like, nope, fuck this, going home. But there probably is a person who, if I saw them, I would just be completely caught off guard and not willing to divorce myself from the interaction. And that's what they're doing.
That's the premise of the movie. But when you take that person and shoot them into deep space, and then 12 hours later they're back in your bedroom, then I'd be like, I'm packing up. I'm going home. I'll see you out. I'll see you later.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Well, we do get a version of that reaction with George Clooney. The first time that he's greeted by his deceased wife, he's like, I'm going to shoot you out of this. So, yeah, it's a heavy topic. And I like that. It gives you a lot to think about. Oddly enough, Soderbergh himself doesn't actually think of this as a remake of the Tarkovsky film. Instead, he believes it's a different interpretation of the Stanislav Lem novel that both movies are based on. Lem himself was pretty dismissive of Soderbergh's take, mostly because he didn't spend any time delving into what the planet is doing to create these visitors from the space station. He believed that was an essential part.
Yeah, I guess you got to make a 2.5-hour movie to do that, though.
Right, yes. Roger Ebert compared the two movies in his 3.5-star review of the modern film. He said, "When I saw Tarkovsky's original film, I felt absorbed in it, as if it were a sponge. It was slow, mysterious, confusing, and I've never forgotten about it. Soderbergh's version is more clean and spare, more easily readable, but it pays full attention to the ideas and doesn't compromise. Tarkovsky was a genius, but one who demanded great patience from his audience as he ponderously marched toward his goals. The Soderbergh version is like the same story, freed from the weight of Tarkovsky's solemnity, and it even evokes one of the rarest movie emotions, ironic regret." Yeah, so that idea of ironic regret really stuck with me. I think what Ebert is suggesting is that this story explores not just human identity, but how we relate to others and how the idea of another person's identity impacts how we interact with them. So I think he's pointing to this plot point where Clooney's character falls back in love with this fake, non-human fabrication of his wife. And I think he regrets he wasn't a better partner to his wife, in spite of the fact that he's expressing this regret to somebody who's not his wife.
He's not his wife.
Yeah. So lots to unpack. I think it's definitely a think piece. Did not do well at the box office. This was not your traditional set piece packed science fiction film. In fact, it only grossed about $30 million on a budget of $45, so it lost money. The last thing I'll say in reference to what I liked about this is the score. This comes from Cliff Martinez, who has scored several of Soderbergh's movies, and this is one of my favorite scores of all time. Has a 3.2 on Letterboxd. I liked Matt S. Bramer's review, which said, "Christopher Nolan has been chasing Solaris his entire career and never thought to just remake it. Loser." So I'm throwing it on the shelf as my first pick. It's one that's pretty personal to me. I've watched this 1,000 times.
I'm going to take us to the 70s, 1978.
All right.
To a movie that's not directed by Steven Soderbergh.
Does it star George Clooney?
No.
Okay.
It's called Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is in the gardening section of the store. Here's the back of the box. When strange seeds drift to Earth from space, Mysterious pods begin to grow and invade San Francisco, replicating the city's residents one body at a time. Tagline is, "From deep space, the seed is planted, terror grows."
Not mad.
Yeah, that's cool. I like
That's a
that.
good one.
This is again not a pure remake. It's kind of like Solaris in the sense that it's from a book called The Body Snatchers that was first turned into a movie in 1956, which I have seen. I don't think you've seen, right?
No. This was my first foray into body snatching.
That's good to hear. You've not snatched any bodies.
No, this is inspiring though.
Yes, don't. There are some connections to the original. Don Siegel, who directed the first one, he makes a cameo as the cab driver that's driving out to the airport.
How nice.
And the first movie starred Kevin McCarthy, who makes a brief appearance in this one. He's the crazy old man who runs into traffic and is like, "They're coming, they're coming."
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's basically
The one who's being chased?
Yeah, and he runs down the street and gets hit by a bus or something. That's kind of his character from the first movie. It goes a little bit better for him in that movie than it does in this one. But Kaufman, the director of the 1978 version, said that he wanted that guy to be basically metaphorically the same character that's been running around America since 1956 warning people and nobody's listening. And you definitely get that energy from him. This movie begins with a swarm of space spores traveling through deep space, and it descends on Earth.
Yes.
They grow into these little flower pods, and kind of nobody thinks anything of it. And then Donald Sutherland is this health inspector, and people in his social circle start to act kind of strange. They start to say things like, "Oh, my husband isn't my husband anymore, and my wife, it's not really my wife anymore," which wouldn't be that strange, except that it's happening to a bunch of people at the same time,
right, in
the same town. And they eventually learn the horrifying truth, which is that these pods are somehow cloning through hair, through these giant hairs. They're cloning humans while they sleep and then replacing them with these emotionless copies.
Right.
And the 70s was really this golden age of paranoia thrillers.
Yes.
And I think this is one of the better ones.
Yeah. You had Rosemary's Baby around that time.
You had All the President's Men, Parallax View, The Conversation, those kinds of movies.
You also had Donald Sutherland doing a couple of horror movies in the 70s. And he's great in this, and he fits the genre well. He was also in Don't Look Now, which is a great horror movie from 74. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's post-Watergate, it's post-Vietnam, the JFK assassination and whatnot. So people were in the mood for these kinds of movies. But I love the feature that's inherent in the pod people idea, and that's that you can't distinguish friend from foe. Mm-hmm. They look just like regular people, even though they're, I guess, plants. I don't know, aliens.
Yeah. Don't they inherit the memories of the person that they have cloned, but not the personality?
Yeah, or just not the personality on some level. I think.
Level, yeah.
It reminded me of the idea of, you'll hear about this, uploading your consciousness.
Yes.
And digitizing your personality, digitizing yourself, and it always is well, yeah, that's great for the people that get to talk to the computer or the robot that looks like me, but I'm still dead. Why is that? That's not appealing to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the same idea. It's well, okay, yeah, I'm replaced by something that looks like me and acts like me, but what do I get out of it?
Yes, and what's great is that it gives you, you see characters in the film that have become pod people, and there's something off about them that's hard to put your finger on, and that it's nice because you sympathize with the characters who can't exactly tell who is who, but they know that there's something wrong, and that's that feeling of paranoia that.
And when you're dealing with people who aren't your husband or friends or whatever, then you don't really know who's good and who's bad. You can't notice those subtle differences.
Yeah.
And then not knowing who to trust, it makes every interaction you have with anybody a potential danger. You don't know who's in on it, who's not. If there's something to be in on, or if it's just generally maybe it is just a fungus that's making people sick or something.
Right.
They don't really know. They even at some point, Leonard Nimoy calls it some sort of biological hallucination or something like that, botanical hallucination or something, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's like, they don't know.
High.
Maybe everyone just like took some bad acid. Like, who knows?
Right.
And then the ending is so great where it's just, you think it's going one way and you're like, oh, he's going to figure out a way to like beat this. And you figure out, it's not quite like that. The ending of the original from 1956, which, it's so like, it's so 1956. It's like Kevin McCarthy shows up to like the FBI headquarters in like the next town over, and he's like, "Oh, there's pod people out, and they're turning people into pod people." And these you expect it to be like, "Well, yeah, sure, whatever," and it turns out the FBI's in on it too. Like, no, the FBI is like, "Yeah, we'll handle it from here," and then they do. It's like, it's so ridiculous. It's like, that's not the ending that works for this.
No,
it's very much like a Twilight Zone episode, but the Twilight Zone would never end like that. It wouldn't end on like some like, oh yeah, the FBI figured it out. It's good.
Yeah, thank goodness for them.
See, I love this movie. I give it 4 stars.
Yeah,
I think it's a great horror movie from the 70s. I found a Letterboxd review that also gave it 4 stars by a user named Paul Thomas, and I don't know if I totally agree with him here, but he sums up his review with, "I love this movie, but totally unbelievable. That would never happen in America." And I think the point he was making was that, people would, if someone was acting weird in their lives, people in America would just be like, whatever, and just go about their business. But I don't know. When it's like the person you're living with, I think people would notice.
I agree. Maybe Paul hasn't been to San Francisco lately.
America seems like a perfect place for this to happen, to be honest.
I agree.
Maybe it would work here, maybe it wouldn't, but I'm putting this on the staff recommendation shelf this week for remakes.
I was glad that you chose this because this was a movie that had flown under the radar for me, and I don't know, even though I like I love the horror genre, I always just saw this as like, well, I think I know what this is about without having seen it. And I was missing out on some wild stuff, including a dog with a face on it. And
that was a really creepy part. It took me a minute to figure out what happened there, and then I figured out it was the homeless guy that was sleeping next to the dog. But,
yeah.
That was it's also like I was going to say CGI, but it's obviously not CGI. But the special effects that they used there was like kind of awkward, but it made it look even creepier.
Yes, I agree.
So
this isn't the first movie. Well, this isn't the last time we'll talk about impressive special effects for the time with one of our staff recommendations tonight. But you're right; they were good here. Good stuff. I'll have to check out the original at some point.
It's short. It's like 72 minutes or something.
Interesting. Wow. That's a perfect length for you.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, I am going to take us into the 90s with my second film. This is from the Scratch and Sniff section of the store, and it is Scent of a Woman. Back of the box synopsis. Charlie Sims is a student at a private preparatory school who comes from a poor family. To earn the money for his flight home to Gresham, Oregon for Christmas, Charlie takes a job over Thanksgiving looking after retired U.S. Army Officer Lieutenant Colonel Frank Slade, a blind, cantankerous, middle-aged man who lives with his niece and her family. Tagline, Colonel Frank Slade has a very special plan for the weekend.
Colonel Frank Slade?
Yeah. Colonel Frank Slade, yeah. You know him, you love him.
Yeah.
Similar to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, this is another movie that, in spite of being very familiar with it, I had not seen it until this theme. So, yeah, I think one of the reasons that I avoided it is because the title of this film always just weirded me out. I mean, the fact that this movie is so well known, I think, normalizes the title. But would it be okay to call a movie like The Flavor of a Man or The Touch of Old People?
It is weird. I hadn't seen it before you chose it for the topic either.
Okay.
And I have to say, I had no idea what this movie was about.
Yeah,
I thought it was a movie about Al Pacino was like a lawyer or something. Honest to God. I guess I remember like they must have shown bits from like the last scene where he's at that table and whatever in the commercial back in 1992, whenever. Yeah. And so like in my head, it was like a movie about him being a lawyer.
Well, he definitely holds court throughout this movie. But Yeah, no, I don't think I knew what this was about either.
I didn't know he was blind. I knew nothing about this movie.
Right. Well, here we are.
Yeah. So, Bob, why do you recommend it?
Yeah. So, this is, per the theme, a remake of a 1974 Italian drama called Profumo di Diana. And that film was even nominated for an Oscar in the Best Foreign Language Film and Best Adapted Screenplay categories. I've never seen the original. I didn't even know that Son of a Woman was a remake until researching pictures of this theme. But based on what I know about the Italian film, it sounds like it was pretty great. Both movies come from a novel by a journalist named Giovanni Arpino, and he wrote a book called Il Buio e il Miele. But really only the premise was taken from that. It's about a moody blind man is accompanied by a young boy.
Yeah.
That's the plot. So this film won Al Pacino an Oscar for Best Actor, even though Jack Nicholson was originally planned to play the role, but he turned it down after reading the script. I could see Nicholson in this part, but Pacino is better.
I guess so.
I think.
How much do you know about the original?
The original movie?
The original movie, or even the book? Yeah, because it seems like this strikes me as like a character that would be a little bit older.
Yeah, it's hard to tell how old Pacino is in this part.
Seems like he's too young to play this part, but I don't know.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
He worked for LBJ. I don't know what
yeah.
the age thing. I don't know how that works.
Yeah, yeah, math.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to Pacino, we also get Chris O'Donnell and a very young Philip Seymour Hoffman in a small part.
Yeah.
This is Pacino in full Pacino mode, which never gets old. He apparently did a lot of research on how to play a blind person for this movie. I'd say it's fairly believable. There's a lot of him staring into the middle distance.
Yeah,
it's looking kind of past people.
I mean, that's a hard thing to play.
It is,
and he does an okay job, I think.
Yeah, I think the way the body language sells the disability, but then there's a lot of stuff that he does that is just not believable in terms of like identifying the exact like scents and soaps that people use.
Yeah.
So I don't know how he's able to pull that off.
I guess if you know your soaps,
yeah, maybe maybe it's a hobby.
But there's other times when it's like, well, he can clearly see, right?
Right.
He's like, why are you holding up two fingers?
Yeah. So this movie is about an hour too long. It clocks in at 2 hours and 30 minutes, and that's...
It's definitely too long.
It's too long.
It's two different movies.
It is two different movies. But why did I choose this? As I mentioned, it's always been on my list. I'm glad I had a chance to watch it. This is the type of story you don't get much of these days. I'd say it's smaller in scale. It's a 90s movie. It's about a couple characters who go on an adventure, and not a lot more. I think it's also a movie that would have fit into several other themes that we've already done, such as like road trip films, dancing, cool jackets.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you take Midnight Run, which was made by the same director as this.
Yeah.
It's like Midnight Run mixed with like Dead Poets Society or something.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but you don't need both movies in there. It's a lot of movie.
For some reason, I always think about this and My Cousin Vinny in the same category. And
courtroom drama.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah. But, just from 20,000 feet, they're kind of similar movies. It's just like a small period of time. These characters get into some crazy shit together, and then you're out. There's no need for a sequel. It's just like, there it is. There's your story.
Yeah, there's a story. A little bit of a road trip.
Right. This averages a 3.8 on Letterboxd. I think that's a little high in my opinion. It's a good Friday night watch. Everything about this that's entertaining comes, I think, from the performance perspective. When you get to see Pacino just in full Pacino, it's
a wild performance.
It is really wild.
It is out of bounds at times.
It is. Yeah. I mean, he's fun when he's playing a caricature, and I think that's what we definitely get here.
I don't know what he's playing. You know what I mean? Like, who is this guy? Like, he sometimes slips into like the Robert Downey Jr. character from Tropic Thunder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, who is he playing? Like this like Southern like gentleman guy, and like his daughter is not that You know, I don't know. It's a weird character. It's like, did he just like pop up out of the ether and like he lives in this house now?
I think so. I mean, I could imagine the director being like, well, I'm not going to try to rein this in, even though it's inconsistent at times. I mean, we get to hear Pacino say "yabba dabba doo" in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a wild performance, and it's kind of crazy.
I did enjoy this take by the Letterboxd user Pube, who
Pube's back.
Pube is back. In his 4-star review, he said, "Never mind how a grown man who's been blind for years needs a babysitter for one weekend. Forget about how the school invites the entire student body to attend a disciplinary meeting at the end.
I was wondering about that.
Don't be discouraged by the unnecessarily long running time. No, none of that matters because we get to see Al Pacino screaming at everybody, and it is fucking incredible."
Yeah, he's not a pleasant character.
No, he's not. He's not. But I could also see you wanting to have him in your corner if you find a way to, endear yourself to him.
If you're on trial in front of the student body of your high school.
So I had fun with this. So I'm throwing it on a shelf as my second pick for remakes.
I mean, it's obviously necessary for any Al Pacino completists. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy performance. You got to see it for that.
Agree.
It's definitely worth checking out. Okay, I'm going to take us to a fairly recent movie, to the year 2022. The movie is Ambulance, directed by Michael Bay.
Oh, the one and only.
This is filed under the Fast and the First 80s.
What a great summation. I don't even know what the tagline is, but I think that's probably better.
That should be the tagline. Here's the back of the box. Decorated veteran Will Sharp, desperate for money to cover his wife's medical bills, asks for help from his adoptive brother Danny. A charismatic criminal, Danny instead offers him a score, the biggest bank heist in Los Angeles history, $32 million. If you remember from the Ocean's 11 back of the box, Danny Ocean is described as a charismatic thief, Danny Ocean.
Yes.
Here we get charismatic criminal, Danny Sharp, I guess.
Danny Sharp, yeah.
Tagline, it was supposed to be a simple heist.
Ooh, well.
It was.
It was. I mean, the summary of this film on IMDb is just two robbers steal an ambulance after a heist goes awry.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it was supposed to be a simple heist, but here's my question. Why was it supposed to be a simple heist?
Is any heist really simple? I mean, it has to be a heist, then... Yeah.
That's the thing. It's not a heist. It's a robbery.
Yes.
It's not a heist. It's not. This isn't a heist movie. It doesn't pretend to be a heist movie. The tagline pretends it is. The back of the box pretends it is. It's not. But again, like it's supposed to be a simple robbery, but it's also the biggest robbery in Los Angeles history, and it seems like they plan it 5 minutes before they go and do it.
Yeah.
Like Will shows up and like they're like, "Hey, we're gonna do this right now. We're going to like what?"
Yeah, like literally right now.
This is the biggest robbery in this town's history, and we just planned it right now. Let's do it.
Yes.
So of course it doesn't work. This is a remake of a 2005 Danish film.
Really?
Yeah, it has a similar story. It's about two brothers who get involved in a robbery. It goes bad, and they hijack an ambulance. It's about their mother needs money for an operation, not somebody's wife. But Michael Bay didn't watch the original. He didn't even he didn't even read the script because he's like, I want this to be my movie. He's like, I like the premise. I'm just gonna do that.
I'm sure he's never played with a Transformer either, so this doesn't surprise me in the least.
But it does feel like this is a return to Michael Bay of old, the Michael Bay we like.
Yes.
Of The Rock, Bad Boys 2. I mean, it's everything you want from his movies. It's got, the explosive action, fast-paced editing, wild characters.
Michael Bay is a director that has earned himself a somewhat farcical reputation in Hollywood. And, his movies...
Just because of the Transformers movies.
I think just because... Well, there's also some weird choices on his resume. I mean, like, Pearl Harbor didn't do him any favors.
No.
But this is truly the Michael Bay that is amazing. I mean, like, this is why he's an incredible director.
This reminds me of the best Tony Scott movies,
100%,
which is kind of what
100%.
what Michael Bay should be doing. He should be a poor man's Tony Scott.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be making fucking Transformers movies. I'm sure he makes plenty of money doing that.
Oh yeah.
But it's just there's just a relentless pace to this. It's just one chase that lasts the whole movie.
Yeah.
And like the best Michael Bay movies, he's not afraid to get ridiculous. There's on-the-fly trauma surgery in the back of this ambulance during the chase.
One of the best.
They don't
scenes
even
in the
slow
movie.
down.
One of the best scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't even it's not even a short scene.
No.
Like, it's an extended surgery scene, and
Yeah.
it just keeps going. In the back of this ambulance, it's driving, I don't know, 60, 70 miles an hour.
They're zooming in doctors from the golf course, and it's fucking insane.
Jake Gyllenhaal at one point calls in the Fast and the Furious gang, and he's like, "Hey, I need help getting out of this jam."
Yeah.
And they do with I don't know, 50 ambulances or something.
Yes.
They just show up yeah, we got a plan, it's fine. But yeah, I mean it's got the base style with the sweeping camera movements, the rapid cuts, the drones.
This is the year he discovered that drones exist.
I heard a lot of reviews that were way too much drones. And I gotta say, that's wrong.
Yes, that's wrong.
I mean, where else are you going to be putting drone shots than a Michael Bay movie?
And who better to use them than this guy?
There's not a more appropriate venue than ambulance, a 2-hour-long ambulance chase. So yeah, in a lot of ways, this is Michael Bay really being Michael Bay. It also kind of seems like it's Michael Bay coming to terms with what it means to be Michael Bay and what a Michael Bay movie is. Because I think he's just hopefully he learned the right lessons and is this is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the cast is solid. Jake Gyllenhaal is basically playing Nick Cage from The Rock, and he's trying really hard.
But boy, he's captivating in the right roles. Mm-hmm. He can also be boring as fuck, but when he gets to just go a little manic and be, I don't know, just somewhat dysfunctional, he's fun to watch. He's exactly that here.
Yeah, for sure. I also I think this is a great Los Angeles movie.
Oh, 100%.
It shows the city from two different levels. It's got this sky high grandiose view of it, and then also a street level view because they're really in Los Angeles. This isn't bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And they're encountering real neighborhoods and landmarks. But there's also some amazing helicopter and drone shots of the city, a lot of golden hour shots with the mountains in the background and the Hollywood sign. They're really meant to make the city look beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a Los Angeles movie that's made by somebody who understands Los Angeles.
And for a movie where it's 90% of the film is a chase, you have to be in Los Angeles. I mean, we'll forget about the fact that there's a ton of traffic there.
Yeah. I love how they talk about rush hour in this movie.
Yeah.
As though traffic doesn't exist in Los Angeles until 5 p.m.
Right.
And then it's crazy. Otherwise, you can drive as fast as you want.
Yeah, but you need to be in a city this size in order to sustain a chase.
That's true. Yeah. Otherwise, maybe Atlanta, you could do it.
Perhaps.
A few other cities, Houston.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ambulance to me is a quintessential Michael Bay experience. It's just a pure popcorn flick that just doesn't stop. The cast is having a blast. 4-star movie easily for me. Letterboxd user Fran Hopfner agrees. She wrote, "Damn, he made a Grey's Anatomy episode for the fellas."
That's well put.
Yeah, so this is a crazy ride. So I'm putting it up on the staff recommendation shelf this week for Remakes.
I fucking love this movie.
Yeah?
This is a 5-star movie for
Wow,
me. Yeah.
awesome.
I
mean, it's not there yet. Maybe one day.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite movies from 2022, and I could not believe that Michael Bay was responsible for a movie that I liked this much, but it's just so fun. It's so fun. And the film critic Patrick Willems has a whole 45-minute YouTube video on why this movie is so incredible. I would encourage everyone to give it a watch after seeing the film, but I'm
gonna have to check that out.
It's a blast.
It really is fun. Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Unstoppable.
Yeah.
Where it's just one of those movies that's it just grows on you, and then it's every moment of the movie, something is happening, really happening.
Yes, agreed. And it's surprising. I mean, it's not your typical car chase movie, not your typical heist movie.
No Transformers in the movie whatsoever.
None. Well, fine pick. I'm going to round things out with a movie that we keep alongside the gummy candies right by the register. It is 1988's The Blob. And back of the box synopsis. Remake of the 1958 horror sci-fi classic about a deadly blob, which is the spawn of a secret government germ warfare project, which consumes everyone in its path. Teenagers try in vain to warn the townsfolk who refuse to take them seriously, while government agents try to cover up the evidence and confine the creature. The tagline is, "Scream now while there's still room to breathe. Terror has no shape."
It works.
Yeah, works. I don't know that the back of the box is totally accurate here. The idea of the kids trying to warn the townspeople, you don't get a lot of that.
Yeah, and the government thing is a spoiler.
Yeah, the government thing is a spoiler, but...
Bad back of the box.
Yeah. So it is a bad back of the box. Incidentally, though, this is even a connection that I didn't realize until you were talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Another remake of a 1958 horror movie.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, that was 56, I think.
56 was okay.
I mean, what's the difference?
We weren't alive, so does it really matter? Yeah. So of the three movies that I brought to the shelf tonight, this is the only one where I had seen the original, but not the remake. But then I learned that Frank Darabont co-wrote the screenplay. I'm a big fan of Darabont, so I wanted to check this out. Much to my surprise, this was a fucking banger for me.
Yeah, this was a surprise for me. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, I did not expect what I got. As I mentioned, Darabont co-wrote the screenplay with director Chuck Russell. Russell was responsible for Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, as well as 1994's The Mask. So he's got some interesting credits to his name. This movie is light on recognizable stars. We get Kevin Dillon, who people might know from Entourage. Beyond him, we get a brief appearance by Erica Eleniak, and Jeffrey DeMunn plays the town sheriff. Those are the only three people that I recognized from this.
Who's the guy from RoboCop and Fame, the redheaded cop?
Oh.
I forget. His name's like Kevin McLeod or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's from RoboCop and a couple of things. Yeah.
So the 1958 Blob simply absorbs people. This one, very much more menacing. It also melts people and
pulverizes people.
Yeah. I'll take this more ruthless Blob because it makes for a better horror film. Why did I choose this? So unlike Death Spa, this is what B-level horror movie needs to be for me. It's gory. The kills are surprising. The acting is bad but serviceable. The story is just the right kind of outrageous. The creature is frightening but also a bit hilarious. We even get the government conspiracy subplot that adds to the fun.
There's also no irony in this movie, which you would kind of expect.
Yeah, none. Everyone is taking this seriously, and it's a blast. Not to mention, we get a point of view blob shot.
I forgot about that.
It's when the projectionist gets killed and he's looking down the air conditioner shaft and the blob comes for him. You know how I feel about point of view shots from the villains.
World's biggest fan.
Right, yes. But what really surprised me about this is how good the special effects are. There's only a few short CGI shots here. Everything else is practical. And when you dig into how they created the blob, there's a good commentary track with this movie that talks about that. It's pretty impressive what they pulled off for different versions of the blob that exist. And yeah, for a movie that's 35 years old, it's impressive what you get. I don't want to give this too much credit by comparing it to another remake I love, which is The Thing. But the level of quality is not too far off when it comes to the gore and the kills in this.
It's got kind of the same tone.
It does.
You know, not exactly. It's not quite as dark as The Thing, but it's not far off.
Yes. And the blob looks good for as difficult as it was to apparently create on screen. Apparently a few of the unused effects shots of the blob got repurposed for the slime in Ghostbusters 2.
Oh.
And you can kind of see it.
I was going to say, the look of the blob reminded me of that stuff that kids were making a few years ago. Maybe they still are, called slime.
Oh, yeah.
Where you mix up a bunch of stuff you get at the grocery store. It turns into this whatever. And like it's very, very similar to that, where it's blobby and it moves around, but it also is solid in a weird way.
Yeah.
Chunky almost.
Yes. Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah, well, I'm not. I wouldn't say the stuff that the kids use is scary, but
no.
If it was moving on its own, I'd be terrified.
And eating me. Yeah.
And pulverizing my friends, dissolving people.
Rob, did you expect there to be a totally rad motorcycle jump in this?
I actually, if you would have asked me, I would have said yeah.
Yeah, well, we get one of those. Critical response to this was decidedly negative upon release, but it's gone on to become one of the better horror remakes that we've ever gotten. Chuck Bowen from Slant Magazine wrote that the film improves on the original cult classic with inventive, gracefully repulsive special effects and an agreeable post-Watergate anti-authoritarian message, which, that's true.
Totally. This is what, 88?
88.
I don't think people were ready for, this kind of a movie.
No. It's during a time when we're in the middle of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, likewise with Friday the 13th and Halloween. And, the Blob is not quite the villain that Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees. So,
and I think at that time people either hadn't seen the Blob because it was from the 50s,
right?
Or if they remembered it, it was like, it's like this dumb thing, And so like, they're making that dumb movie again, and so like this this movie's dumb too. And like, this movie's not dumb.
It's not dumb. It's got a lot that it does well. It does average a 3.8 on Letterboxd. It's a little low in my opinion. I categorize this as a 4-star movie. I did enjoy number one Bratz fans' 5-star review on Letterboxd where they said, "The Blob kills a date rapist and someone talking during a movie. This is maybe the most satisfying film of all time." High praise.
Yeah.
Maybe a little too high, but nevertheless.
This was really fun to go back to and check out. It was
Had you seen this?
No.
Okay.
No, this is great.
Yeah, I was surprised by it.
Yeah, there's some funny parts. There's some other. There's some like classic bad movie parts to it.
Yeah.
Like the whole town's being evacuated, but the movie theater's full of people and nobody thinks to go say anything.
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, hey, what about the movie theater?" Like, "We got it. It's handled. Whatever." I also was wondering, did they have snowmaker trucks? Is that a thing? Like, would you need to drive around and shoot snow in your town?
I don't know. I'm glad they had it, but it seemed like a convenient thing to have in this town, whether they're real or not.
Yeah, I wasn't mad at it though.
No, it's It helped make for a good climax. So it's fitting that on a night when we celebrate our 50th episode, we're also talking about movies that have been done more than once. This theme was remakes, and the 6 films we brought to the shelf are Ocean's 11, Solaris, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Scent of a Woman, Ambulance, and The Blob.
If you like websites, go to rewindvideopod.com where you can drop us a line, get on our mailing list, or find us on social media.
Next time, we will be packing our bags, dusting off the old passports, and focusing our attention on the theme of international travel.
Got my traveler's checks.
I wonder where we're going to go. Oh, yeah, traveler's checks. Got to have this. As usual, we will have 6 films to recommend. In the meantime, feel free to stop by the counter for a movie to watch, and we will see you next time.
Be kind. Recommend. Hail Satan. True story.